Hello again, dear friends. Today is February 15, 2024 in the year of the Lord. Today's video is actually going to be about the measure, as I've mentioned. I'm going to talk about the measure of the world, and I'm going to connect it to us as well, because we are also viewed by God. The way we measure unto others, it is also measured unto us. So I want to start off by saying in Matthew 7, the first two verses in Matthew 7, because that's how it starts. It says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged." Okay? "For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured unto you." So, measure. Okay? Now, I want to talk about the fact that there are two ways measure is viewed. We can show love, we can be compassionate, we can forgive people, we can be truthful, we can be respectful. These are all ways that we are planting when we are being that way. If we are kind people or we are rude people, depends on what we are. But however we are and however we put ourselves out there, the way we treat people, it usually comes back to us, because we live in this world. So basically we toil in this world, and this also comes, by the way, monetary as well. However you help people, God comes back and blesses you sevenfold. The way, whatever you do, it's usually measured back by what you give out. And this is not just the way God views as far as judgment or reward, it's also with people. Okay? If you have a neighbor and your neighbor is sick and you attend to their needs, you help them out, you take them to the hospital because they need to go to the hospital and they can't drive. This is an act of kindness, my dear friends. It's an act of kindness. It's an act of compassion. It's an act of love. So that is definitely going to come back if this is how we do it, if this is how the treatment that we are giving out. Now, this is our part, but we live in this world, and the world is a living organism. Okay? So whatever we do, remember between Adam and Eve, and God said, "You're going to go toil the soil," to Adam. Okay. Whatever we do in this world, it actually goes in the world. So if all the good we're doing, the world is shining, and all the bad we're doing, the world is receiving that bad as well. Such, when we have a lot of wars and all these evil things that it's taking place, and all the bad things, that catastrophes that it's occurring, whether it's earthquakes, volcanoes, or pestilence, or a lot of things that it's taking place, bad things taking place, that's because it's kind of going back into the world. So the world is receiving the shed blood. And I would like to come and take the example of, let's say, Genesis 4. Let's go to Genesis 4. Genesis 4, this is where Cain actually kills his brother Abel. And in Genesis 4, verse 10, this is the Lord. The Lord said to Cain, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." So what happened? When Cain killed his brother Abel, obviously the blood shed on the ground. So now Abel is calling out for justice because of his shed blood. It went into the ground. So the world received that shed blood. Okay? Now, this is just one example. This is Abel and Cain's example. Let's think about this on a bigger scale of all the wars that it's taking place in this world and all the shed blood. And mind you, I'm not just talking about wars. I'm also talking about abortion, because killing innocent babies is also considered shedding blood, my dear friends. And it's, the Lord is very, very clear regarding shedding blood. Shedding blood is a sin. I don't even have to say it, but I have to mention that's because obviously I'm trying to explain the measure. So now, knowing that the shed blood goes into the ground in the world, now I would like us to go and review Genesis 15. In Genesis 15, God is, this is where God makes a covenant with Abraham. But Genesis 15 verses 14 to 16, when God is talking to Abraham, and this is what he says. He's talking about his descendants. But I will punish the nation they serve as the slaves, and afterwards they will come out with great possessions. Oh, this is the time of the Israelites leaving Egypt. Okay, that's what God is telling Abraham, that it's going to happen with them. That he's going to punish the nation that they served as the slaves, which the Egyptians, and then afterwards they're going to come out with great possessions. Sure enough, they did. Now, watch what he says afterwards. You, however, so God tells Abraham, you, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. Number one, he's prophesying that Abraham is going to live until an old age. So he's going to be old until he dies. And then in verse 16, which is very important, he says, in the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. Okay. So God tells Abraham, it's not going to happen now. Your descendants are not going to come here now, because, that's because the sin of the Amorites have not yet reached its measure. It's not yet full. But they're going to come back during your fourth generation descendants. The same way is the world, my dear friends. When all these sins are taking place, the shedding of the blood that it's going into the ground, when a lot of innocent souls that died are crying out to the Lord, what's happening? We're getting to the point that the world will reach its full measure. When the world reaches its full measure, my dear friends, with the sins that it's being committed in it, that's when we are going to go from this age into the next. But we're not going to change ages until the fulfillment of everything God said comes to pass. Because obviously, leaving this age, it's going to leave a mark upon us. And I've mentioned this in a video before, that it's coming during this time that God is going to test our faith and hope. With everything that is taking place, we're going to be tested with our faith and with our hope. So when that thing happens, it's going to come upon all. It's going to come upon me. It's going to come upon everybody else. Because God is going to measure us. Because the world itself, it's going to be a moment that it had reached its full measure with its sins. And we are already ready to change from this age to the next. So we are going to be exiting the age of Esau, which I've explained this in a previous video, and we're going to go into the age of Jacob, which is the golden age, the age of blessings. So my dear friends, the thing is, this is why I'm sure a lot of people heard this. This is a time-driven war. And nobody knows. Nobody knows because nobody knows the measure except God himself. That's why nobody can come and say, oh, on next month, during the next month, on this day, this is what's going to happen. We cannot put a timing on this because only God knows when the world is going to reach its full measure, which we are so close, by the way. I tell you that because we can discern. For example, Jesus said, if you see the clouds in the air, you can discern that it's going to rain. So we can discern with all these things happening, we are close, but we don't know the fullness of the measure when that's going to occur. We don't know that. That's why it's a time-driven war. So nobody knows. And that's why a lot of people heard the term, it's going to be biblical, because it is biblical, my friends. It is biblical. Only when we get to that point of the full measure, then we're going to pass on to the other age, but before we pass on to the other age, our faith and our hope will be tested, because not a lot of people are going to make it onto the other age. Not a lot of people. There has to be a lot of good in our hearts, a lot of love, a lot of compassion, a lot of forgiveness. We have to live in Christ to be able to make it, because it's going to be very difficult. I don't know, should I say time? It's going to be a difficult time. It's going to be a difficult season for us until we pass from this to that. And that's what I saw in my dream, my dear friends, when I uploaded the dream regarding the Great Awakening, the military operations, and the wealth transfer. So the wealth transfer is actually passing from the old age to the new age, which is leaving the age of Esau, going into the age of Jacob. But that's not going to happen until the fullness of the measure of this world reaches its peak, because people's sins have to come to its peak. Only then we're going to be able to pass. And until then, by that time, until we are going there, until the level is rising, we are going to be tested in our faith and in our hope. Okay? So my dear friends, this ends my, this ends this video regarding the measure. Okay, in my next video, I'm actually going to share with you guys regarding my visitation to the Lord's court. I would say Jesus's court of mercy and judgment. Okay, but it's totally different experience. It was not a dream, and it was not a vision. Stay tuned until I upload that video. And I pray for the Lord to bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you. May the Lord turn his countenance towards you. And may the Lord grant you his peace. Until then, please, my dear friends, remain blessed.